Wow, what's good, y'all? This your boy Dee-1, and these are my 24/7 HH King bars from my song Hood Villains. You hear me? Look, do you believe in institutional racism? I hope you do, because it's true, and trust me, everyone's a victim. Listen, there's been discrimination ever since slavery. Now it's racial profiling. Before I leave the house, pray for me. If I'm wearing a hoodie, I might get shot. It don't help I'm from New Orleans and I got dreadlocks. Man, let me tell you what's real. The school to prison pipeline. Have you in special education when you in your right mind? Oh boy. So what I'm talking about is the fact that in America, in our city, in our country, in our, nation as a whole, in these states, in these United States, man, we're really not that united, because if I could walk outside with a hoodie on, because it's cold, you hear me? It's cold outside, and I got dreadlocks, unfortunately, that makes me more of a target to be discriminated against. Wearing a hoodie and having dreadlocks, that could automatically get you profiled in a way to get you shot or discriminated against. It's just real talk. People might not want to admit it, but it's true. We're afraid of people who have certain appearances, like what I spoke about. It's been discrimination ever since slavery, you know what I mean? We can't fathom slavery because we weren't here, but it's real, and it wasn't that long ago, so that's something to keep in mind. And last but not least, I speak about the fact I used to be a teacher, so I know firsthand, they think that these kids just need, medication when they really just need communication, you hear me? They think they need detention. They really just need attention. You try to throw these kids in special education, and it's like, man, you're gonna adversely affect how they grow up now, because you're trying to push them off into the system when you just gotta communicate as a parent or as a teacher, you feel me? So a school to prison pipeline that we must address. I am a former teacher, so I know firsthand that in certain school districts and in certain communities, they'd just rather say, oh yeah, these kids right here, we got to get a certain amount of prison bunks ready for them, because if they're not doing well on standardized tests, by the 3rd grade, then it's a good chance they're going to go to prison. And it's like, man, y'all trying to say these kids are slow or make them go to special ed, give them medication, you heard me? Plus, they got the music on the radio programming us, keep us dancing while they brainwashing us and scamming us, cramming us a bunch of violence and a bunch of sex. If you ain't strong enough to rise above the trap, it'll get you next. The court system is crooked, the sentencing is harsh. Free Mac, by the way, McKinley Phipps, shit, that's my heart. Difficult to gain employment even if you're qualified. If your application says Shaniqua, you probably won't get hired. You just listen to the music that they say. As black people, we're supposed to listen to a certain type of hip hop. If you real, and unfortunately, the standard of what's considered real as a black person is listening to hip hop that's riddled with violence and profanity and, just this overt sexuality, talking about selling dope and just money over everything, you heard me? And it's just, man, it's just poisonous. And I'm also speaking about the music that we get bombarded with, man, with all these negative messages, man. That stuff affects people. Nobody has ever committed a drive-by shooting while listening to positive or gospel music. I guarantee you heard me? But trust me, it's the music that we hear that make us think, oh, that's what it means to be real. I gotta, I slang that iron because I don't mind dying. You heard me? Like, yeah, like that's what we think is the definition of being real. So that's what we grow up doing. But this is the music that we're getting bombarded with, especially in the hood, man. Man, you go on Instagram and you see little babies from the time they 1 and 2 years old, the music that is just blasting out the urban radio station, you know what I'm saying? In every city is overwhelmingly filled with drugs, violence, sex. So these kids are growing up and their parents like, yeah, go ahead. And they taping them dancing and twerking on Instagram to these songs. And this becomes the soundtrack for their lifestyle. Why is that the soundtrack to your lifestyle when you 2, 3, 4, 5 years old? You heard me? Why is your lifestyle filled with music that is all about violence and drugs and sex? It doesn't make sense. It's not cool. If you ain't strong enough to rise above the trap, it'll get you next. That's actually a double entendre, you heard me? If you ain't strong enough to rise above the trap, it's like it's technically a trap. It's like a booby trap that we got to make sure we mentally strong enough to rise above it. But it's also saying if you ain't strong enough to rise above the trap, because what's inside of every hood? A trap, you heard me? The trap house. And y'all know what goes down in the trap. So that being said, if you ain't strong enough to rise above that type of trap as well, it'll get you next, you heard me? They used to have a well-known trap house right across the street from where I grew up at in New Orleans. Right across the street, man. At any time I could have went over there and said, man, let me see what's going on over there. I see shiny cars and big rims, you heard me, and people coming in and out of there with jewelry on and all this type of stuff. What's going on over there? But I already knew what was going on, you heard me? And because I had love in my household from my mama and my daddy, I was strong enough to rise above that trap that was across the street, you feel me? So look, so the name of this whole song is called Hood Villains. Hood Villains, I'm basically talking about what's really the biggest problem in the hood. Who's holding all the people in the hood down for the most part. And in the first verse, I talk about the drug dealers. In the second verse, I talk about the Uncle Times, you know, the people that make it out the hood but never give back and think they're too good for their people. The third verse, I'm talking about America as a whole, you heard me, and institutional racism. So that third verse that you just heard me spit, I'm speaking about America and the role America plays in holding people in the hood back. I'm speaking about, you know, the system as a whole and just institutional racism and how that's one of the villains when it comes to people in the hood that's holding them back. You know, even the fact that a lot of people don't get jobs just because of what their name is. And when an employer looks on their application and they see what their name is, Shaniqua, oh no, that don't sound like somebody we want to work here. Next. And it's sad, bro. But that's a hood villain, you heard me? America. That's why we need alternatives. We need people that's not afraid to speak up. Dee-1. You know, people like, you know, yeah.